Hey guys, this is today's shave. I'm going to keep using the horse. This is the Zenith horse brush, and I like this handle. You can get this handle in the other knots that Zenith has as well. It does get a little skinny here, and so sometimes if I'm gripping it super hard, there's a little extra pressure on my fingertip that I don't enjoy as much. But in general, I like it quite a bit, and it offers great ergonomics. The horse knot is the extra soft kind, not the standard kind. I do probably want to get maybe a standard horse at some point, especially if I see it on the used market. From Zenith, I've got a friend who tried the extra soft, but it was a little too like floppy or soft for him, and so he upgraded or somebody else on his advice upgraded, and they're kind of liking that standard horse. Now it'll probably have too much prickle for me, too much tip feel for me, but it might be fun to try sometime if I get a good deal on the cost. The exact model number here will be in the video description if you're curious. And we are going to go back to the Weck. This is a replaceable blade, straight razor style shaver. It's not technically a straight razor, but it's more firm than the shavettes that use the kind of blades that you break in half, the standard safety razor blades that you break in half. The blade is much more firm than that. It's much more like a Feather Artist Club type blade for sure. But I think it's actually a little bit different than that because, as you can see, you can see a lot of the blade here. 6 millimeters, something like that. And the Artist Club razors that I have, the grip, because the blade is not as deep, this blade has a very thick doubled spine that is concealed underneath the mount here. But and so this is quite a thick blade. And so the Artist Club blade, since it's less wide, has to be gripped closer to the edge. And while that's wonderful with the safety razor blade because they're so flexible, it gives you a solid feel. These type blades are so thick that you don't need that. And because those Artist Clubs are gripped so close to the edge, you can't quite get that same flat angle. And so that's one thing that really intrigued me about the Weck here. I've had one shave with it already, and that went well, and one shave that I kind of had to jump ship. And it was for good reason. Number one, my skills aren't great with this type of razor, the open blade type, so don't listen to me in terms of advice. Although what I do tell you is what I've heard from reliable people who've been doing it for years. I've just learned from them on posts and videos and things like that. Great guys like Lynn Abrams is a classic, ubiquitous straight razor user online. And so don't pay any attention to me in terms of technique, just in terms of watching a noob give it a shot. Maybe 9 times I've used an open blade razor or straight razor. And the first time it went actually pretty well in terms of comfort. At the end of the shave, I walked away with no irritation and a nice close shave, doing my whole face with the Weck. And this is a hair shaper blade. This blade is from Kismet, which is a lot of guys seem to prefer this blade to the From or the Persona blades that are available. And the Kismet blades are more available in Germany than they are here, a little more expensive to get here in America. The second Weck shave that I did, I was 2 shaves ago, and I had to abandon it. I started on my face. I think I did a little of my neck, but I was dealing with a week's worth of growth. And my friend Greg, I think it was, posted that he's a daily shaver and he uses straights most of the time, or the Weck, and he said that he doesn't he tackles daily growth with a straight razor and has never really attacked a big beard like that with a single edge. And so he thought I was wise to abandon ship. I did get a couple of spots that were cut really well with the Weck, but my technique just wasn't where it needed to be to get a good shave at that point. Today, 1 or 2 days of growth is what I have on now, and so that should be hopefully just fine. I did switch to a Fatip razor the last that time when I used the Weck and I finished the shave on that. The soap, we finally get around to telling you about the soap. This is from Noble Otter, as you can guess from up here. And I guess this is their label for small batches because they're able to write in whatever it is. Oudyood is the scent for today. And I am a big oud fan, big time. Didn't know I was when I started, but yeah, that kind of a deep, rich, resinous wood type scent. And to go with it, I have my Agar balm from Stirling. And Agar is a close brother to the oud. And it actually may be synonymous with oud, but it's a close brother sibling to that scent family for sure, if I recall correctly. And so today we'll be testing a new soap, just like we did last time. We had the Fine Accoutrements Classic Puck that has been discontinued now. This is the travel container for that. And it did great with the Slurry Lather. I expect the Noble Otter will be fine with the Slurry Lather. This has a little shrinkage around the corners, and so it hasn't been used in a while. So maybe 40 swirls. Let's try that to start off with and see what we get. Let me get my face wet. I do have my bowl just to rest my brush in when I'm done, when I'm not using it, when I'm doing a face rinse, that kind of thing. And in case there's any water in the tub, slurry kind of soapiness in the tub, after loading, I'll let it drip into the bowl because then maybe it can be used later. But that is the limit of the use of the bowl in this shave. Let's so I used the horse last time and it did fine with the fine, and I discovered that it's not a dense knot like those high density badger brushes that are out. It's more like a standard density badger brush. It doesn't hold as much water as a boar brush, for instance, because those fibers really absorb water. And so that helps them to do that. I think I shook out a little too much water in my first try with the horse brush here, so I'm not going to do that again. At least I'm not going to try. I'm going to shake out a little. I can feel the weight. You know, if you do this a while, you might be able to kind of tell it by weight. And when it gets too light, when it's too heavy, I guarantee you, guys who shoot pistols, for instance, if they do it enough, police officers, that kind of thing, they go to training ranges and they shoot. You put a lot of rounds through. I've heard that they can tell if a gun is fully loaded or missing a couple of bullets in the magazine because of the weight. And you just have a feel for it because you've done it so much. So that's possible maybe with a shaving brush with all that water, because it is definitely like the weight point, the midpoint of mass, center of mass is what I'm trying to say, is about right here, right now, and it wouldn't be that if I didn't have water in the brush. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 30, 40. And we do have a little bit of slurry and some light bubbling being generated. This knot being so black is actually nice to see that light kind of super wet soap bubbly stuff being on the brush, so you can tell how much is on there. I'm letting the soap just kind of empty out into the bowl. That might come in handy later. And then we'll go right to the face. The big boar brush that I started out with before, with the fine, yeah, see, look at this. This is just not doing very much. I think we need more loading with this soap. Let's do another 40. Let's put a little bit more water. I'm going to put a little bit more of the slurry back in this soap, and we'll find a sweet spot. 1, 2, 3, 4. 40 more swirls, and you could I don't know if you could hear the sound. It started to change. We started to get a a more kind of soapy type sound, that it was more than just bristles moving over the lather, moving over the surface of the soap. So let's try again. So that's how you troubleshoot the Slurry Lather. Give you first few swirls, you're not going to see a lot of action, but within a certain number, and I need to kind of figure that out, you should start seeing some, or you should pause and get more soap. There we go. See, took a few swirls. We are not going to count this against Noble Otter because this is a soap that hasn't been used for a while. Now, if I keep using this soap and it still does the same thing where it requires more loading, then that's just something we'll note. But I got a feeling it'll act like the rest of them. And there we go. Slurry Lather, first pass does not need to be all that mature. Matter of fact, you're kind of not doing a Slurry Lather method. I don't know, maybe you are, maybe you're not. Anyway, that's something I have to figure out. When I present this kind of with a more official video where I document it and stuff and show everybody, one important question is, when is it not a Slurry Lather? Because as we talk about shaving things, it's good to talk about the same thing. If a guy modifies the Slurry Lather a certain amount, maybe too much, then maybe it's not a Slurry Lather, and so you shouldn't call it that, or then it's miscommunication, you know, and we don't want that. All right, so here we go. Again, it is tricky to see my starting point right there. I'm keeping my, actually using my camera on my phone. Might be better when I'm at certain points. One thing I'm doing is thinking about my ear and where the very end of the razor is. Because if you focus just on your cheek, then you could definitely cut your ear with the, I think it's called the toe. I think this is the toe and this is the heel. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm not focusing on perfection, just just like with a safety razor, focusing on gradual removal with each pass, not trying to get it all bald the first pass. Now, some people I know with a straight razor, they don't rinse it in the water between. They just wipe the stubble on and the leftover lather onto like a rolled up cloth or towel that's there. Maybe because you need to try to protect this little joint right here from water, because on a real straight it can get in there, and because it's prone to rust and that kind of a thing. I am, doing a little bit of tugging with my my right hand here. Again, I'm watching the toe of the blade not get over too close to my ear, and now I'm watching the heel of the blade. And there we go. And I have chosen in my straight razor technique to switch hands right and left. I am definitely right-handed, and so it feels more comfortable, but I figure I'll learn, Now, how do I approach this little slim part right here? I think if I were to do this movement right here to get that, it wouldn't be all that comfy. Let's try to use the heel. The heel and the side eye. It took a side eye to be able to see that. This is where having glasses definitely is a disadvantage. Let's do that same. Motion right there. Okay, now the cheeks are the easy part. If you're just learning this kind of razor, do the cheeks with the razor, and if this is too much trouble, do that with a normal safety razor. Do that with a double edge until your skill gets better with the straight. short strokes. That way I'm less likely to make a mistake. There's a mole right here that I am nicking all the time. I'm never surprised if there's a dot of blood right there. Small blade angle. Now my sneaky little girl did use this to cut on one of my towels, the little stinker. And so I don't know. She said she just did a little bit, and so how has that impacted the sharpness of the blade? It's just a question mark, unfortunately. All right. You can think of it as a mirror. And so if I used this kind of stroke on my right side, then a good starting point might be switching and doing that same kind of stroke on the other. My friend Greg said he also used a very small blade angle, I think he said. He said that's a safe bet. And right now I don't have any irritation or anything like that. If you do take your time, which you should, and the last part that you finally get to, maybe you feel like the lather isn't quite there like it used to be, then don't try to be a brave soul, right? Just put a little bit more on there. And as you can see, there's not a lot in there, right? But that tiny little layer of slick stuff is what's most important, and that's there. Now this angle right over here is tricky. Take my time. There we go. I might have just navigated that fairly safely. Definitely on the conservative side, and so I might have more, stubble to pick up on future passes. Water rinse. Plenty of stubble still left on my face for other passes to catch. That's all right. That's the way it goes sometimes. I think if I were a little bit better experienced, then it wouldn't be as much of an issue. Now look at that. There's not a lot of soap in here. And so that 40 plus 40, still wasn't enough for this soap. So I'm going to wet the tip of the brush again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40. All right. Some soaps may take a longer load than other soaps with the Slurry Lather method, and that's okay. What I like about this method is that even though you might have to go back and load some, see, bam, I'm ready to go. Okay, with the more majority driven method out there where you load a ton of soap on the brush and then you have to add water to get it to the right place. This, when you have to go back to the soap tub, kind of gets to that right place a whole lot quicker. It's a lot less work when you have to go back to the tub and get more soap because you might not have gotten enough in the beginning. And that's a very big plus in my book. Something, just one of those things I'm just kind of discovering. So pretty much the same stuff again. The low blade angle may not cut as efficiently sometimes, but it's more conservative. And if it doesn't cut as much, then big deal, I'll just hit it again. I have a lot of confidence right now with my feel. The edge just does not, it definitely feels like it could bite me if I did something wrong, but it feels very under control. Oh, especially when I get down to where, you know, your neck folds and stuff happen. Really got to watch it there. It's easy to get careless there and end up with a real problem. And so, see, that didn't take too long to kind of get this whole area like that. Center area now. Yeah, that's just super slick. It is common for straight razors to prefer, straight razor shavers to prefer a wetter lather than the double edge razors users. And so the Slurry Lather definitely fits in that paradigm too. Again, watching the toe of the blade when it's close to the ear. Stretching, in my experience, can make a big difference. Proper stretching can make a difference in the feel of the razor for sure. It can glide across the skin confidently, cutting properly if you've got the right tension on there. But if you don't have enough because maybe you forgot or you're not moving your neck properly or something like that, and there's a little bit of lag and movement in your skin, then it can be scrapey and catch and things like that. I feel like right there is, yeah, see, that's a bunch of stubble that's just not getting cut. I don't know if the blade is dull because of my daughter. Honestly, it just doesn't feel that sharp. A little stinker. But, I mean, most of the rest of my face is really doing pretty well. So it's definitely good training exercise with gripping the razor, holding it at the right angle. I think I'm doing well with that. Let's just stop the second pass right there and try to remove more in just a minute. A little water splash. So yeah, I did 3 sets of 40 swirls with this brush here and this soap. It should be less by next time, but the Slurry Lather is just, if you happen not to load enough like I did today, it just didn't take very long to get back in action, did it? On that other method where you kind of load a lot of soap, I definitely have been frustrated on the third pass when I didn't have enough soap, and then I had to reload on the brush and then go through the process of rebuilding the lather on my face. It just takes a long time for me. Now, obviously your skill increases with that method and you probably don't have to do that anymore. But this just, I'm back in action pretty quick. Even from the start. I can change my angle a little bit because right up here in my sideburn area I was picking up some stubble that really needed to be taken down. Maybe that's the secret for this area that I was having a problem with. The neck is really tricky with all the concave and curves and a straight edge here. It can be tricky to figure out the right way to approach it. I've been doing this. Let's tilt it slightly. Now that over there is too loose. I'm going to do some tugging. Much better. I bet I would have cut myself if I would have kept pushing that without tugging my skin properly. And over here should go pretty quick. I think this side's doing very well. pushing my mouth to pull the skin up, lifting my chin up. Those are all tugging type maneuvers. You can even do a slide where instead of going straight perpendicular like this, I can do a kind of a diagonal. But you got to be super careful, because if any sideways movement like this, you're going to cut yourself big time. Definitely not a close shave today. I think the blade, man, I think my daughter messed up this blade. I think that's as good as I'm going to do. And I'm working from home today, so I'm not going to bother polishing everything off with a double edge that's sitting right over there. I'm good. Face feels good. I don't feel any irritation or anything like that. When I did do a water splash earlier, I did feel a couple of spots where maybe I generated a touch of tenderness that I'm sure that an alcohol splash is going to remind me of, or the salt of an alum block, you know. Now let's get a good rinse. So I probably have a couple more passes, maybe one more pass inside the brush here. Not really anything in the bowl to work with. But I can do another pass with this. So wow, that took 120 swirls basically. 3 seconds of loading. 3 swirls per second is my approximate rate, and so then we're looking at 40 seconds of loading, which is actually pretty reasonable for an older soap that's kind of dried out a little bit. And then a brush like this with kind of a flexible nature to it, it doesn't grind up as much soap as something more firm, right? So while I think this is proof that Noble Otter, we know that the horse brush works with a slurry. We now, I believe, know that Noble Otter works with a slurry, but we'll refine it. And since this is an older soap, I'm going to use it a few times. After we do that, then now that fact that it hasn't been used in a while becomes a non-issue, and we got to remove the variables. And then what I may do is, instead of trying it with a horse again, I may switch to a synthetic or a badger, you know, and that we're changing out variables there, keeping this variable the same, and removing the fact that it's old, you know, from the picture, and then changing out the brush as the variable to just confirm that this Noble Otter base is good with the Slurry Lather. But I think I can pretty much pronounce that it is, but I do want to confirm it. I want to see, does it work with the Slurry Lather if you do a variation like longer loading, you know, that sort of thing. That's what I'll find out. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the fingertips kind of get pressed into this surface right here. And if you can see, they actually made it a multi-tiered surface right there, a little bit of a dimple. And that's just, visually, it looks nice. It makes it look more sophisticated, but ergonomically, it was a bad move, because that puts that ridge pressing right into my fingers. And when I'm shaving, I'm not putting as much pressure on the brush, and so it really doesn't bother me that much. But right now, when I'm washing the brush, I'm having water pour into my bowl here, and I'm pressing down to do it. That is really bothersome. This would just be a perfect handle if maybe this were a couple millimeters more thick, or if this little kind of secondary ridge right there wasn't there. So I think the horse started out with enough water this time, as opposed to last time. However, it did not start out with enough soap. And so we're going to keep working on that down the road. But that probably more has to do with the soap being absorbed, floppy brush tips maybe. But the fact that it's older, like I was mentioning. So I might swap out the brush, but then once we stabilize, I'll definitely be bringing the horse back in to use it with some other bases. So we've looked at Cella and Williams and I think Mitchell's Wool Fat and Barrister and Man and Stirling Beef, Tallow, pardon me, and now Noble Otter and Fine Accoutrements Classic Hard Puck. So we're trying these different soaps with the Slurry Lather method, and we just haven't found one yet that it doesn't work with. So that's cool, very cool. Agar to go with the Oudyood scent on the soap was very nice today. It wasn't super strong, and that's pretty typical of Noble Otter, at least to my nose. With Noble Otter, it's almost like I have to think about the scent. What scent profiles are there? And if it's something punchy, if it's something that's got a lot of neat notes, like plunder, Texas, you know, that kind of thing, then I know I'm going to like so far I've liked the scent strength. But in the case of things like that are more light, that are more even keeled in general, if you look at the notes, then a lot of times Noble Otter is less strong than I would prefer, and I'm not apprehending it enough around me during the shave to make it kind of worth the event. It's almost like you can kind of treat it like an unscented soap. There we go. Stirling Balm, Agar, yeah, perfect match with this Oudyood scent. Perfect. Not complementary, just right in the same line. Not two opposite things working well together, but pretty much the same note. Just enjoying it further along in the shave here. So that was an interesting point today that I learned about the Slurry Lather method. Another benefit of it is if you make a mistake and have to kind of redo things, it's much more quick to before you're back in action. You know, because with the slurry, it's like load and then you can throw it right to your face and you've got really wet slickness right away, as opposed to the overloading method where you put the paste on your face and then you gradually add water to improve it, and it takes, you know, a while to do that. Again, I'm not dissing that. If that's what you like, then go for it. This is a subjective hobby. Do what makes you happy. Nothing wrong with that. And other people are going to have more skill than me at that method, and maybe they know how much to load so that paste just quickly turns into what they want, and so then that speed is not an issue for them. Okay, so yeah, it's not fair for me to critique that, to kind of throw shade, be negative about that particular method unless I'm really good at it, because when you're good at it, you get to experience all the positives to it, right? And so if you're not good at it, you can't complain about the negatives that wouldn't be there if you were better, if your technique was better. Well, I think that's it for today's shave. I'm smelling good. Love the oud, and in both scents today. I think that's it. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.